sabrinasalvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. All right. Happy Sunday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show, and you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. I want to give a shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. Tonight's theme, ladies and gentlemen, is get ready. Get ready, because we have some crazy things that are happening, not just in U.S. news, but also international news, ladies and gentlemen. Before I bring in our special guest, I do want to show you what we are discussing tonight. These are crazy times that we're living in, but I'm sure many of you are not surprised. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are discussing, this is a wild, crazy, insane story. Liver King, social media influencer, fitness influencer at one point, targeted Joe Rogan and apparently was arrested. So this is a big story here, how people can just go crazy and lose their shit. So we're going to get into that. We're also going to discuss, this is a big story this week, Donald Trump's birthright citizenship. What is happening there? The SCOTUS has made a decision that could really change how citizenship works in this country. We're going to get into all that and who that would impact. We're also going to discuss, this is interesting. Joy Reid exposes Msnbc on The Breakfast Club. Now that Joy Reid has left Msnbc, she's gone independent. She has her own show on YouTube now. We're starting to see a different side of her. She is telling what went on behind the scenes. We'll get into all of that. We're also going to discuss, this story is absolutely insane, and I feel like it's not getting enough coverage. There have now been drugs that have made their way into Gaza. Drugs made their way into Gaza. Also, to go along with this story, the IDF is saying that they were instructed to kill Palestinians that were seeking aid. We'll get into both of those stories with our special guest. And last but not least, I told you I was going to give you that economic update so you can see where the job market really is today. That is the economic shock story, ladies and gentlemen. But first and foremost, let's go ahead and bring in our special guest. You've seen him here before. He is the host of For the People podcast, Mr. Nico House. Welcome back, Nico.
What's going on, Sabs? Thanks for having me back.
Welcome back, man. It's crazy times right now. And I know sometimes you're probably happy you no longer live in the United States.
Sometimes. All the time, every day. I was literally talking to my friend today. He lives in Brazil too. Another black guy. He was talking about how he has to go back to visit his mom for her birthday in August. And I have to go back soon too. And we're just like, oh, bro, I do not want to go back. Like, even a week, like the whole time, I'm going to be complaining. I'm not going to lie to you, because it's like I have to, my stomach has to actually readjust to the processed food there. And it takes like a week for me to even be like readjusted in that way. Like, so outside of that, like I still have to get used to just the energy there and the craziness, the partisanship, and when you get kind of used to looking at it from the outside, especially like during this whole Iran conflict, there was a meme going around Brazil because, the United States, most American citizens like to refer to themselves as the Americans, and instead of like everybody being part of the Americas. And like, there's a meme going around saying like Brazilians complaining whenever Americans say that this is America too, until like Iran's like, okay, dead to America. And then we're like, nope, America's over there. It's over there. So yeah.
That's right. Well, Nico, we have a crazy story. You guys, this definitely needs more coverage. we have updates coming out of Gaza. And Nico and I really want to talk about this because with everything that's been happening with Israel and Iran, it seems like the attention has kind of been pivoted away from Gaza. And there is breaking news that is coming out of there. And here's the first one. Somehow, some way, opioid pills discovered in U.S.-backed food aid, Gaza authorities said. The U.S. Israeli aid distributor, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, has been widely condemned for possible complicity in war crimes. This is a big, big story, ladies and gentlemen. So to make a long story short, here it says the Gaza government media office on Friday condemned the discovery of
I believe in being consistent about my policies.
So your father is not a citizen of the United States.
Hold on one second. Sorry, something auto played. Sorry about that, Nico. It's that it had Vivek had to autoplay for whatever reason. But this part right here, that's important. They discovered oxycodone pills in flour bags that were distributed by American Israeli aid centers. This is a huge story. They have said here they had 4 testimonies from citizens who found these pills inside the flour bags, possibly that some of these narcotic substances were deliberately ground or dissolved in the flour itself. Nico, I want to bring you in here.
So the aid was distributed by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, excuse me. And it's important that people understand that effectively, this is the only aid foundation that's being allowed to operate in Gaza. So it's not like they can point the finger at somebody else. They're talking about condemning the drugs that were sent in, but everyone knows how difficult it is for literally anyone else. It's impossible for aid from any other organization to get into Gaza. So this fake condemnation of the drugs being put into to Gaza through the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, it's crazy. It's insane that they actually believe that people are stupid enough to think that they were not directly guilty. They weren't just complicit. This was intentional, and it could be for any number of reasons. Principally, I believe that it could be one of those situations like what we've seen done to a lot of indigenous communities, where you basically inject drugs, alcohol. They won't ingest them directly because many of them are Muslim. So you have to sneak it in, which forces them to be addicted, and that causes a whole host of other issues as well, as you well know. So it's scary because when you combine that, right, they're not getting much aid as it is. The aid that they're getting from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is trash. They say like there's like no drinkable liquid basically. There's not really any food. If there is food, it's usually bad. The former director of the organization, literally, his name is Jake Woods. He literally just gave up. He quit the organization in February 2025, 2 days before they made their first distribution, because of how horrible it was being ran and how Israel and the United States weren't allowing him to do his job. Now I can't speak to how genuine his intentions were, but like he knew that it was a PR nightmare. So it's scary when you look at the drugs, plus the fact that they're being kettled into these aid checkpoints just to be shot down. We posted a lot about that on Hotspot. And Israel and the United States are directly responsible for this.
So someone already said it, but I was going to bring this up. FM said like crack in the 1980s put in Black communities. That's exactly what I thought about when I heard about this story, because for those who are not aware, similar things have happened here in the United States where you have a community. Well, first and foremost in the US, first they took the jobs, right? So the factory jobs were gone. If you go back and you know about like the Great Migration, where Black people moved from the South to like the northern states to have those factory jobs. Well, then first they took the jobs away. So now you're at a point where you're obviously going to be desperate. They took the jobs away. Then they brought in. So people oftentimes don't get this right. drugs were brought into Black communities. So obviously, like, you don't have a job, you're desperate, you have despair, and then next thing you know, they want to get you hooked on drugs. This is exactly what this reminds me of. So now it's like, if you look at everything that's happened in Gaza, which Gaza is a complete disaster, there's hardly nothing left there. So they don't have no jobs, not to mention, Nico, it's not like people in Gaza are working. They have no employment. The kids aren't going to school, haven't been for over a year. And then now they put in the final test, right? They bring drugs in. Let's get the people addicted to drugs so that they can either die from it or the community can completely fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see how the US government or Israel pretends not to know anything about this. They're directly responsible. I mean, the Gazans didn't put those drugs there themselves. They're not even allowed to leave.
Yeah, the Gaza didn't put the drugs there by themselves. The majority of the population of Gaza is Muslim, so they don't have drugs or alcohol readily available. And they probably, even if they had it for sale, and as a person, like, I just, I went to Egypt. It was actually very difficult to find any alcohol. Not saying that it wasn't on sale, but like, we could basically only drink at the hotel because it was an American hotel. So like, it is very difficult to find any type of drug or alcohol in a Muslim dominant society because of the religion. So, for this to have gotten into their communities, had to be intentional. And the goal was to force them to do something they otherwise wouldn't do, to force them to participate in taking a drug that they otherwise wouldn't take. And there are some Muslims who don't even believe in taking Western medicine. So even if it was available to them and they were taking it, oxycodone for the right reasons, quote unquote, they still wouldn't take it. They would prefer a different method, or they would just tough out the pain. So, once again, we have to just remember this in the context of no one else is allowed to deliver aid. These and the boxes were from this organization. And the organization, I mean, it isn't just Israeli, and American supported. It's based out of Delaware. That is where it is incorporated, right? And we haven't seen really any level of accountability, at least in my opinion, sufficient accountability regarding this, knowing that, because this problem never existed. And now it does, right? It never existed before. Israel's running Gaza. Israel's the only one who's controlling the flow of aid in and out. And now the problem exists. So once again, where is the not just condemnation through words? I'm talking about, where is the accountability? Where we need to start putting people in jail. I mean, because beyond the drugs, they're literally kettling people at these points and killing them. And I mean, beyond that, these points were created as well to get them to volunteer into enrolling through a biometric system so they can trace Hamas militants, but really is to get them all enrolled in this system, probably to prepare them for this transition, this fake ass two-state solution that Trump and Netanyahu were talking about, where effectively Gaza still wouldn't be free. It would just be controlled by US and Israeli puppets.
Exactly. They're essentially like poisoning their food. The other thing too is that, to Nico's point, Israel controls what comes into Gaza, right? So Israel doesn't even allow chocolate to enter Gaza.
They control whether the water runs or not, right? Like, and it's not like when it comes to this aid, it's not like we haven't been spending the last 2-3 months screaming at the top of our lungs because they were disallowing aid from flowing through. And then they made a huge spectacle whenever they finally created this fake organization, this fake humanitarian aid organization, to allow aid to flow through, finally. So it's like they set it up so that there would be no other option as to who the culprit is. Everyone knows it's you because y'all made a big deal about not letting the aid through. And then you let the aid through, and then drugs in situations where drugs will otherwise not be used. And so it's scary. Like, people have to understand, this is a colonial pattern. This isn't something we just saw in the Black community or the indigenous community in the US. Y'all know that, like, when there were drugs planted and ran through the indigenous community in places like Colombia, specifically for them not to destroy their indigenous community, but also to give a reason for the cops and the government to go in there and take their land and remove them from their land, put them in jail, for them to basically allow the Spaniards and the wealthy to control those areas for various reasons, for agriculture reasons, because it was a convenient area, just to get the indigenous out. Like, this is a pattern that Israel is following. It's not, they didn't invent this move, but that's how we can probably guess what their intentions are because we have the context of history here.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those examples that you can't point to. And by the way, this should be all over corporate media, but it's not. And that's why, like, Nico and I are talking about this, because this is a big story. Like, there should be a lot of outrage about this, that these drugs were brought in through the aid, through the food. And they know, and I saw a video, Nico, and you probably saw this one too. There was a kid, he was going to get flour, like, for his family. They were throwing the bags of flour on the ground. The kid was trying to get the flour off the ground, and it's mixed in with the dirt. And he was interviewed, and they said, "Why are you picking up the flour off the ground?" He's like, "This is all we have." He said, "We're going to sift through it to try to get, I guess, as much of the dirt out of it as you can, so that they can try to make bread or something with it." But like, if you see the videos on social media, they are treating these people like they are animals. The way that they are throwing the food at them, the people got to be low on the ground because they're afraid they're going to get shot, and then they shoot at them anyway. It's absolutely insane what they're doing to them. So I want people to know about this, because when they tell you that they're letting aid come in, corporate media is not showing you the videos that are coming out of Gaza that you see on social media of what they're doing to these people when they come to try to get the food. And now you find out that there's drugs mixed in with it. So we have a serious problem, and the US is directly responsible and Israel is directly responsible. But again, because our attention has been diverted to, Israel and Iran, a lot of people don't know about this.
Yeah, it's not even really, you can't blame really anybody for not being aware of what's going on, because that threat of World War III was genuine. And it's still, in my opinion, hasn't dissipated. That threat is still there and it's still very real. But I also don't want people to feel like these two issues are disconnected, because the central problem is still Israel. And, at a micro level, it's Netanyahu, right? And I believe that a lot of what's happening, a lot of what's taking place is part of that greater Israel project. You've talked about it. I've talked about it. Taking Palestine is part of that greater Israel project, but also all these wars, because Netanyahu, as soon as he got done with Iran, well, I don't know if you want to call it done, but they took a pause and starts, actually before he even took the pause, started bombing Lebanon. Then he started bombing Syria again, because every move he makes is to extend these corruption hearings that he's supposed to be going through. And every time they start a new war, they keep moving the date back, and start a new conflict, they move the date back. And he also gets to move the elections back. So he keeps getting to avoid accountability, right? And if Israel, to be frank, is so busy trying to hold him accountable for the things he did inside Israel as prime minister, they haven't even had the time to hold him accountable, or even think about holding him accountable for the things that he's done regarding Gaza or the West Bank. And there are even some people who used to work in his government that left that have condemned his actions strongly, not necessarily because of how they feel about the Palestinians, but because they know that his actions have led directly to Israeli deaths unnecessarily, all because he's trying to cover his own ass.
That's right. This is a good point Tabitha brought up. Israel won't allow any medicine or pharmaceuticals into Gaza to help alleviate the pain of amputation, but they'll introduce highly addictive substances into the food aid. Exactly. So another way to kind of, I guess, numb the pain, but obviously they'll become very addictive. We know what opioids has done here in the U.S.
Did you hear about how they're trying to blame these Israeli drug dealers who are using drones to fly in drugs and cigarettes into Palestine, or to Gaza specifically? They're trying to deflect blame to some random Israelis. I'm like, if they flew a drone from Israel into Gaza, y'all would have shot that drone down. There's no way. Y'all be shooting everything that flies. Anything that flies, anything that drives, anything that's moving too fast, anything that's walking too slow. Y'all shoot dogs, cats, horses, anything. And y'all gonna try to convince us that it was two random Israeli drug dealers that are running some super secret operation. And please explain, how are they communicating with their plugs in Palestine? With whom are they communicating? Because nobody got phones, they don't got no towers, they don't got nothing. The fact that we're even still able to see these videos is a miracle in and of itself.
Yes.
And a lot of times we're not even getting to see the full videos or the full stories because it's so hard to get information from inside of Gaza outside of it. So like, who would they be communicating with? If there is an Israeli drug dealer, they're probably communicating with an Israeli drug dealer who's in Gaza from the IDF. Either way, it's Israel's fault. But it's the government, I can assure you. Like, there's no y'all. We could if there was somebody who could have figured out a way to use drones to circumvent this blockade that Israel has put, then somebody would have done it already to get aid into Gaza. But somehow they're going to try to convince us that a drug dealer is smuggling in cigarettes and other drugs, and they didn't know it until this oxycodone was found. It's ludicrous.
That's right. Don't forget, it was the CIA that also was busted bringing drugs into the Black community. So it's the government. And that leads us to this story, too, because something else that just came out of Gaza, it's a killing field. IDF soldiers ordered to shoot deliberately at unarmed Gazans waiting for humanitarian aid. This is another one, another story I think that's been kind of slept on. It says that IDF officers and soldiers told Haaretz they were ordered to fire at unarmed crowds near food distribution sites in Gaza, even when no threat was present. Hundreds of Palestinians have been killed, prompting the military prosecution to call for a review into possible war crimes. Netanyahu, Katz reject the claims. Of course, they call them a blood libel. So here we go again. They are trying to eliminate the people that are left. Nico, your take on this?
Yeah. They're trying to eliminate the people that are left. And by the way, this story, although Haaretz is reporting that the officers are now admitting this, I don't know if you recall, but this has been going on since February. And I know because I covered this story for Hotspot when it started, because I was like, what? This is a fake aid organization. Is not going to do what it's claiming its intentions are, especially considering that the director already left because he admitted that was going to happen. He knew all this was going to take place and he didn't want to be a part of it. And there have been mothers having to send their sons into these aid points because they have zero option. They have no other choice. And you have no idea whether or not your child is going to come back alive because they're shooting people at these aid points and for no reason whatsoever. And this has been happening for months and no one has done anything about it. It is despicable what's been allowed to take place. And people, like the audacity of Zionists to go on Twitter because of this concert in the UK and this guy saying, well, fuck the IDF and all that good stuff. Like, oh my God, I don't feel safe. I had to come to Twitter to let everybody know I'm a Zionist and now I don't feel safe. Like, bitch, nobody would know you a Zionist if you didn't say it. I don't understand why y'all, like, I hate when people like make that like false conflation of like being a Zionist and like being an Arab or being Palestinian or being Black. Like, if I say I'm a Black person in a particular space, I don't feel safe. It's because I don't get to choose if I am Black or not when I enter this space that I do not feel safe in. And I am aware that given the context and the history of that particular space, there's a chance that some shit could go south. No pun intended. But when you're a Zionist and you got blonde hair and blue eyes, no one's worried about you. No one is walking up to you and asking you, hey, ma'am, are you a Zionist? Literally nobody. I wouldn't have known you were Jewish or a Zionist if you didn't say anything. And it's disgusting and it is sickening to see them playing the victim because of some words. He said, fuck the IDF. Meanwhile, the IDF is literally shooting kids down, looking for food.
Yeah.
Like if you didn't know the IDF was hated until like yesterday at that concert, that's your fault. You ain't been paying attention because we've made it pretty clear how we feel about the IDF over the last couple of at least the last couple of years. At least. Sometimes longer than that. But whatever. It's
They've
crazy.
been trying to make it seem like words or speech is more dangerous than the actions. Like, how is that more dangerous than actual genocide? Like what they're doing to like the Palestinian people. And you'll see it here. It says conversations with officers and soldiers reveal that commanders ordered troops to shoot at crowds to drive them away or disperse them, even though it was clear they posed no threat. One soldier described the situation as a total breakdown of the IDF ethical codes in Gaza. According to Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza, 549 people have been killed near aid centers and in areas where residents were waiting for UN food trucks since May 27th. Over 4,000 have been wounded, but the exact number of those killed or injured by the IDF fire remains unclear. So they were instructed to kill people who were seeking aid. So again, like I said, they never had any real intentions of letting them get the aid.
That
This is
military
coming
officer got to
from
be new there, right? Talking about that doesn't fall within the moral code or the ethical codes of the IDF. He must be new. He got to be, because that's exactly what shooting at crowds full of Palestinians. That is literally all y'all do, especially if they're unarmed. The only thing that would make a difference is if those Palestinians were armed, then we know y'all are running the other direction, because y'all are only accustomed to killing people who can't defend themselves. Like, that is your whole doctrine, people. Like, he must be new there.
But the thing is, this statement isn't coming from like a journalist in Gaza. This statement is coming directly from members of the IDF.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I mean, I'm sure you've heard about some of the IDF members. There's been high suicide rates amongst the IDF members getting out, transitioning out. They're struggling to call up their ready reserved people who are, a lot of them don't live in Israel, right? They're supposed to come back when they're called up if they want to maintain their citizenship. And whenever Israel's calling them, they're like, yeah, I ain't going to be able to make it, dog. You wildin'. They're wildin'. I don't want to be a part of that. They don't, and people, I mean, I don't know if it's shame. I don't know if it's fear. I don't know if it's a lack of morale. It could be that there are some Zionists, because I've heard stories and I've personally experienced people who've, I know this is going to sound crazy, pretended to be racist, right? And it's because they've been around racist people their entire lives, that all their connections, their family, their friends, everybody they know to some degree is racist. And even though they don't support it, it's a struggle for them to completely separate themselves from people that have been intricately involved in their lives for their entire lives. So imagine at this moment being a Zionist. That cult hits a lot different, because it's not like racist people, they may or may not control, they may or may not have the keys to your life and your livelihood. But there's a 98% chance if you're a Zionist and you decide to reject that community, they do. That is a fucking fact. That is just reality. Zionism is so intricate. It controls so many aspects of our society, not just in the US, not just in the UK, not just in the Middle East. I mean, I see it here in Brazil at times, right? It's all over Argentina. It's in every single aspect of our society. So imagine you being the one Zionist in your family, or at least former Zionist, that's like, hey man, y'all don't think that it's wrong that we're killing a bunch of kids and saying that it's because they're on our land? Isn't our land our land? What does Gaza have to do with that? Imagine you being the one to say that. And all of a sudden, all your inheritance, every opportunity you thought you were going to get, even your own family, just goes away. Because when you're a Zionist, there's almost like this unwritten rule. You play ball, then you get to win. You get to be part of the team. You get to enjoy the benefits of looking away when genocide is happening, right? But if you don't play ball, hey, we could turn you into Reid or Mehdi Hassan real quick, right?
Right.
I mean, and look at because we got to remember, as much as we don't like Mehdi Hassan, they didn't even give Mehdi Hassan a chance to do his show before they fired his ass. They said, "Oh, he Muslim. I don't want to know what he's gonna say. Let's just go ahead and kick him off the show." Reid gave the most tepid criticisms of genocide. Bye-bye. Candace Owens. Hey, man, I'm just never going to support killing children. Wow, that's a step too far. Candace she crazy. Candace is crazy. I'm like, yo, y'all think that's the craziest thing Candace Owens has said? They tried to think about like what's like, you cannot like Candace Owens, but still recognize like what happened when she decided to step on Zionist toes, right? Because she's being punished, in my opinion, for two reasons. Or should they try to punish her? Because she had one job, and that was to criticize black people as a black woman and never step out of that box. So there was that. But then when she finally decided to step out of that box, it was to criticize the people who were writing her checks. And they were always writing her checks. Maybe she wasn't aware of that, because there are some people who weren't quite as aware of how much Zionism has consumed the media and really business and once again, every aspect of society prior to October 7th, but she found out. And they thought that they could crush her. Maybe because they've successfully done so many times before that they didn't think it would be a problem this time. So they thought they could successfully crush her just because she said, I don't want kids to die. They were okay with her saying Hitler was right. Or Hitler wasn't, what did she say? Hitler wasn't that bad, basically? Is more or less what she said. And they still brought her on. Think about that. They brought her back. They tried to recuperate her image after that. But saying that she doesn't want Gazan kids to die was a step too far. Like, that's so right. Imagine why you wouldn't. I can imagine why a lot of these IDF people are like, yeah, man, I have my criticisms of this war, but I'm not going to say anything because they're terrified of they can see it. We all can see it, but they're living it. Like they know how deep it really goes. So I feel like that's a huge reason why you don't see more Zionists actively speak out. Because I talked to one. I literally talked to one who was he described himself as a Zionist. He's a professor at Duke, and he was like, I'm horrified by what I'm seeing come out of Israel. That is not the country that I was born in. At least I would not like it to be. I didn't think that was a mindset of the people that I grew up with, and he's horrified, but he doesn't say it often or out loud or on Twitter because he knows that there's the backlash from that community is real, and they will come at you even harder if you are a Zionist or a Jew that speaks out against Israel than if you are anybody else.
And also, it's supremacy. Ultimately, it's supremacy that you're supporting. But speaking of the Christian part, this is another thing that I mentioned. I don't know if everybody knew about this, but at the same time, in the West Bank, Israeli settlers were attacking the Christian village of Taba and Ramallah, setting homes on fire and shooting the residents. So my thing is, are conservative Christians going to say anything about Israel attacking other Christians?
They still haven't.
You see what I'm saying?
You heard my theory that Israel, like people haven't realized yet, but I'm pretty sure I pieced it together. The U.S. is actually the greatest threat to the greater Israel project, right? So while the Israel still needs the U.S., that is actually a weakness because as long as they need the U.S., that signifies that the U.S. is still the dominant superpower in the world, not Israel. And so while they're using the U.S., while they're paying off these politicians and keeping their pockets full of shekels, they are simultaneously trying to get the U.S. to engage in its own demise, which is part of the reason why they wanted the U.S. to get involved more in this situation versus Iran, because they knew that at the end of the day, they might not destroy each other, but it will be pretty damn close as far as Iran's actual, like the cities in Iran and their economy, and then subsequently the economy in the U.S., right? And as that's happening, we all know that they would still be expanding. They're in the process of formalizing their relationship with Syria. They're bombing Lebanon. We know Lebanon's part of that project. We know Egypt is only loyal to the U.S. because of the money that they can give them. Once that money runs out, that loyalty will also run out. So by taking out the U.S. economically and having them do it by choice, right? Because the U.S. thinks that it's making their own, they think that they're making their own choices. And they think that Israel is going to protect them in that region. But what did Ted Cruz say? Whenever Tucker Carlson was like, hold up, Israel spies on the president? And Ted Cruz is like, yeah. And Tucker was like, you cool with that? I mean, it's normal. No, it's not. It is not normal. What are you talking about? It'd be one thing if we were like co-allies, right? If we both relied on each other with some form of equity, bro, y'all can't exist without us. Imagine going to spy. I'm not spying on my mama. My mama will bust my ass. Who do you think you are, sir? Like, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, I pay the bills in this house. I'm the reason you're alive. You can't live without me. Who do you think you are spying on me? But Ted Cruz is talking like it's normal. But Epstein, why would they have a man gather intel on their allies like that? Like that type of blackmail? Out of all the forms of blackmail you could, are you sure their intentions are what you think they are? Because the U.S. manipulated every single ally, every Western ally, into basically perpetuating their own demise, propagating their own demise after World War II. And they thought that it was their choice, but it really wasn't. We saw the UK have to split up and give up all their colonies, all their vassal states after World War I and World War II. We saw all these countries voluntarily enter into these World Trade Organization, voluntarily enter into the United Nations, voluntarily enter into NATO. But in reality, all of them were just entering into organizations that the United States were controlling. And now, with the World Trade Organization, with NATO and NAFTA and other type of regulatory institutions, guess what? The goal was so that none of the allies could ever pass them again. And the U.S. knew that. And the other allies may not have known that, but they found out. So that's why China, not really ever being an ally of the U.S., was able to surpass the U.S. because they weren't participating in this game that the other allies were doing, trying to placate a post-World War II U.S. Israel looks like, to me, is taking a play out of their playbook. Like, he's like, yeah, we're about to make y'all, literally, we're going to lead you to your own demise. We're going to pay off a few politicians to look the other way while it's happening. And we're even going to get y'all to cheer for it. We're going to get y'all to cheer for your own demise. Because that's effectively what we saw happening with Iran, right? If we would have went to war with it, we're not winning that war. I keep telling people that. Nothing changed about my opinion. Still nothing has changed. They're already talking about Iraq could start enriching uranium again in a couple of months. That strike was not effective. No. That strike was not effective. So that's my theory, is that Israel is literally trying to destroy the United States because the United States technically would be the biggest threat to a greater Israel project.
Well, and now we're seeing, and this is another thing too, and I know many of us have talked about this. Again, I told people I'm still skeptical of him, and I'll be doing a panel Tuesday night about this race. But now we're seeing Zoron Mandami was able to win a primary while running on supporting BDS and running on a one-state solution. So Israel was really screwed.
Yeah. I mean, he was the only one that wasn't kissing Israel's ass. Now, granted, his little comments about wanting to increase that budget because Jewish people said they're feared for their lives. So, I'm just gonna say, my guy, like, because it's like a anti hate crime initiative or whatever. I'm like, bro, you know how many people actually do fear for their lives because like they wake up every day and they don't get to choose to be Zionists. Like they don't want to they don't get to announce to the world like, hey, I'm Zionist. Please be mad at me. Like, no, they're like Black people, Latinos, even East Asians. There are a lot of people who actually experience genuine racism and genuine fear of a hate crime. And like by funding that budget to the tune of what do you say, like $800 million or something like that, something crazy.
Yeah.
Like, you are legitimizing Zionism while simultaneously saying that you condemn Zionism and the genocide. Like, you can't do both. And also, by who you're choosing to ignore, the struggles you're choosing to ignore also lets us know a lot about you and where your priorities are. So he needs to be careful with that.
Yeah. That's what many of us were saying. Is like you're making it so that I think he's trying to appease both sides a little bit, and I don't think this is one of those issues you can both sides. I just don't. I just don't. That's like, I don't know. That's like trying to both sides like during the civil rights movement. Like you can't.
Exactly.
It just at this point in time, no.
You know what, Sabby? But it's not though, because during the civil rights movement, desegregation was actually unpopular. So like you're in a very unique situation where your side is the most popular side in the world. It is not even close. So much so that you can be the only one on stage who says you condemn the genocide, you will not support Zionism, and you would demand accountability, and you would like to see accountability, and be Muslim and say all that and still win, and still win a primary.
And on top of that, I don't know if people were aware, but he won Hakeem Jeffries' district. And Hakeem is a big Zionist, takes a lot of money from AIPAC. So that says something. Now, I don't know what's going to happen in the general, because the numbers are showing right now, if Andrew Cuomo was back in the race, by the way, running as an independent.
Did he make an official announcement? Because I know the other day he was contemplating not running.
I believe so. Eric Adams doesn't want him in, but the numbers are showing right now that if Andrew Cuomo leaves that race, then Zoron is well ahead of Eric Adams. If Andrew Cuomo stays in that race, Zoron has a chance of a stronger chance of losing, because you have I'm serious. Andrew Cuomo has more support right now in the polls. More people support Andrew Cuomo than Eric Adams.
That makes sense. I would have just assumed that he was going to take votes away from Eric Adams. So, like, if he stayed in the race, I assumed it was going to help Zoron.
The numbers aren't looking like that now.
That's interesting.
Yeah, more people,
because he beat him. You know what I'm saying? Like, he beat him. So, like, why would he? Like, I guess they're assuming that Republicans are going to swing hard to Andrew Cuomo.
I think a big part of it is we got to remember not as many people vote in the primary as in the general. So more people are going to come out for the general election, but also then too, we also got, like, we remember how Bernie Sanders did in the primary, how he was doing in 2020. Remember how he won, like, what was it, New Hampshire? And then he went on and won Nevada, and everybody started freaking out and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then you saw what eventually happened when things came around. So I just think, one of the mistakes, which I said before on the show, that Zoron is making, is that he's not connecting with older Black voters. They hands down went towards Andrew Cuomo, right? So that's a problem.
But like I said, you come out here, you want to talk about hate crimes, and the first people you point to is the most protected class in the world. Like, that's who you want to help. You're not even pretending like we're a priority. And I'm not even saying, like, if you want to say like everybody's a priority, okay, then leave it at that. And then, take it from there. I can't really blame you. But when you go out of the way to make them the priority, as if there's something unique to them that would make them a target, right? Like, that they can't help. Like, you don't have to go around announcing that you're a Zionist that believes in genocide. No one's telling you to do that. And even if you did, that would not justify you getting $800 million budget increase to protect you. If anything, I would feel like y'all have free reign as New Yorkers to handle y'all business. You know what I'm saying? Like, so
yeah, but that's the thing. Like I said before, I was like, I think you would get more Black voters if you had Black issues, right? Like, if you put Black issues at the forefront. I said the same thing when Bernie was running, right? But then people will say that's divisive, that's identity politics. But it's okay for other groups to do identity politics. You see what I'm saying? You see how other groups will come forward and say you need to put us first?
That's that shit. Listen, Sabs out here spitting the facts. She's spitting the gospel, because I always say it's very interesting how every other demographic can have a coalition. And no, not can have a coalition. It is expected for them to have a coalition and advocate for their rights specifically. It is expected of them. They're like, how are you going to get anything passed politically if you don't have your own coalition? Okay, well, we're going to have our own coalition of Black people. We're going to center Black issues. Whoa, racist? What? You don't see white people center white issues? Oh, actually, yeah, we kind of do, right? Like, we literally, there's, whether you want to, call them racist or whatever, like, there's a whole sect of the GOP and even some Democrats, some liberal Democrats, who want to maintain the status quo because it benefits them, right? So, yeah, there is. I mean, they don't want to call it that, but that's what it is. But Indigenous have their own coalitions in their states, especially for municipal elections and state elections, which is important, and I support. There are, hell, look at AIPAC. Do I even have to say more about Zionists? There are people who work in specific fields that have their own coalition. No one calls them divisive for wanting to better the economy for their benefit. But when Black people that have anything to say, right? It's, even though, once again, there are still Jim Crow policies affecting us to this day. There was another case of redlining found and prosecuted recently. I think the case ended up, they found him guilty in 2024. So it's still happening. And this is in places like New York. And so he actually has the power to speak out against, like, the quota system that everyone knows the NYPD uses. He could speak out about redlining, and not only speak out about it, but as the mayor, he has the ability to correct it.
That's right.
And that would change everything for New Yorkers. Because, whether it be Black Americans, Black Latinos also, like, they've been affected in some similar ways as Black people, like, but you don't even mention that type of stuff. And so if you're going to mention issues that would be discussed widely on a national level, then bring up those Black issues, because it is in your city where Black people have been dominantly affected. Brooklyn will never look the same because of how they gentrified it. Williamsburg specifically will never look the same. I remember when taxes were terrified to drive through Williamsburg, and now it's one of the most expensive places in the world to live, right? The Bronx even is changing. Harlem will never look the same. Like, these are places that were dominated by Blacks and Latinos, and white people effectively kicked them out.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not going to talk about that, then you can't come and ask for our vote, because we're the ones being affected by these policies. Especially if you call yourself a Democratic Socialist or whatever, like, okay, then be that. But the problem, which we have discussed and other Black people have discussed, the problem with this Democratic socialism that y'all keep talking about, Black people seem to always keep getting left out.
Every time?
Every single time. It's just a weird coincidence. Even out of the fucking leadership at the top, right? Like, it's kind of hard to pretend like we don't see it.
That's right. All right, Nico, thank you so much for your time. Let everybody know what you got coming up.
Of course, follow me on Hotspot. You can follow us on Twitter at Hotspot. Follow me on YouTube. Go to my YouTube channel. I'm actually making a push, yo. I'm trying to get 1 million subscribers this year. And it's very simple. I just want to see what it will look like whenever somebody who's like never been bought, never been paid for, never worked for a major media organization, none of that, like, gets 1 million subscribers and just start speaking the truth about everything all the time. Because there's not really any Black men in this space that have that type of microphone that doesn't have some type of political connection or some media network connection. So, like, I want to just see what would happen, because it changes the way the whole world interacts with you and the issues. And I feel like, Sabby, you're one who can attest to that, right? Because there's been times where all of a sudden, you know, whenever I first met Sabs, she had 2,000-3,000 subscribers and she was talking about the news. And then all of a sudden, Sabby became the news at various times because, oh shit, that's Sabby. I got to respond to her now. Before, they wouldn't have responded to you on Twitter. Now they're like, oh, that's Sabby. Oh, I got to respond now. And then they make an ass of themselves. And it become the topic of the day. That's what's funny. But like, that type of influence is really what we need going into the next few years, because there are going to be a lot of deceivers that come out. They're going to come out. They're going to try to take advantage of the fact that Trump economy is no longer prevalent nor available, because he's going to be on the way out. He's already betraying his base as it is. There's going to be a lot of people pretending that they were against a duopoly from the jump. And we can't allow them to dominate this space just because they have the means to do so, when all y'all have to do is do the one thing that doesn't cost any money, which is subscribe and share. So y'all go follow me on YouTube. You can look my name up, NIKOHOUSC, or For the People Podcast. Follow me on Twitter at Real Nico House, on Instagram as well at Real Nico House. I do a lot of stuff there. And follow follow Nick on Twitter. Follow my hotspot people, David Hundayan on Twitter as well. Y'all already know Nick, but David Hundayan, follow him on Twitter too. Appreciate you having me, Sabs.
All right. Thank you so much, Nico.
Appreciate you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Nico House. Definitely make sure you're following Nico on YouTube. Nico is one of the OGs. I like to call him OG. He was in the space before I was, and I remember watching Nico, like, before I had this show. Like, so he's an OG. Make sure you show some love to him. All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, the theme is get ready. Get ready. Let's go to some of the comments and then we'll get to the next stories. Thank you, Bernie. Sabby, thank you. I love your podcast. Thank you so much. Angie said exactly what happened to the Black community. Yeah, that's what we were talking about. Thank you for the super chat, Eric. I'm surprised they aren't blaming China. I know, right? It rained. It was supposed to be sunny. It's China's fault. Miss Ritchie, opioids are not available in the Muslim majority countries at all, even in pharmacies. And thank you for the super chat. From 1947 CIA doc, The Consequences of Partitioning Palestine. The Arabs will be accused of aggression. Whatever the actual circumstances may be, our government equals manufacturing Islamophobia for 80 years. There you go. Thank you, Kevin. Saw your vid on Black feminism. Very enlightening. Thank you. Thank you, Eric. Reparations is not identity politics. It's class politics. You tell them, Eric. You tell them something. All right, guys, if you haven't had a chance to do so, can you smash that like button? Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. And the theme tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is get ready. Well, get ready for this. This news broke this weekend. The Supreme Court has made a ruling that could lead the way for Donald Trump to change birthright citizenship. This has a lot of people concerned. We're going to talk about both sides of this and also the bigger picture. Let's go ahead and get into this clip here.
Good morning. I'm Wade Johnson in New York. We're coming on the air because the Supreme Court has just released a potential landmark decision impacting the future of birthright citizenship in the U.S. The justices were asked to roll back nationwide injunctions against the president's attempt to redefine the 14th Amendment, which states that anyone born in the U.S. is automatically a U.S. citizen, regardless of their parents' citizenship status. It's been in place for more than 150 years. But now, in a 6-3 split, the conservative majority ruled that President Trump can move forward with implementing his birthright citizenship change, except for those who brought the case, the 22 states and a group of pregnant immigrant women who brought that case. So it's not directly getting at the 14th Amendment here, but this will have a nationwide impact. Let's go ahead and bring in our Devin Dwyer, ABC's senior.
Before he brings him in, yeah, this will have a nationwide impact because basically they're talking about changing or the definition of what it means to be a citizen in this country. Now, we saw this was brought up before, and in the past, federal judges have been able to come in and just block Donald Trump from making these types of executive orders. But the Supreme Court ruling is changing those things. And there's a number of different ways that some people are going to try to fight back doing this. It has been suggested or recommended that people do a class action lawsuit. I just want to explain to people that class action lawsuits don't happen overnight. Those things take time. And so just prepare yourself for that. Also, this raises the question as who is this going to apply to? Because I'm going to show you someone in particular that this new ruling would apply to, but I'm sure they're probably going to get a pass because of who they are. Also, we need to ask another question. Donald Trump has continued to say that the border is closed. If the border is closed, then you shouldn't have to worry about this issue, right? If the border is closed, you shouldn't have to worry about people that are here illegally having babies here, right? Come on, guys, we got to start thinking. You got to start opening up our minds here a little bit. But this would really change things. And I'm going to get into what the 14th Amendment actually says in just a second.
A Washington reporter who's been following the Supreme Court on this. Devin, it's not as straightforward as I think a lot of people were perhaps expecting or hoping to hear. So break down what this actually means.
Well, this was a big surprise, Whit, and this is coming from the youngest conservative justice on the Supreme Court, Justice Amy Coney Barrett, 6-3, as you said, in a big win for Donald Trump, saying he can move forward with that executive order that he issued on day one, changing the definition of citizenship in this country. Practically speaking, it means the president can, in the next 30 days, begin to develop guidelines for how he would implement that. It does not mean, however, Whit, that this executive order is free from future legal challenge. Legal cases in 3 different districts will continue on the merits. The Supreme Court, in oral argument in this matter, did signal that it was skeptical that it could stand up to legal muster. But at this point, the court is really weighing in on the ability of individual judges in districts around the country to block a president's action nationwide. And what Justice Barrett said today is that an individual federal court judge does not have that authority to broadly block a president. The judge, he or she, can block an individual while a case is being litigated, and in this case, that was upheld. So, this order, as it's implemented, cannot apply to those 22 states. It's going to be messy. It cannot apply to those particular pregnant women that are challenging this. But elsewhere in the country, and at the very least in the planning stages, the president can move forward, and that is a significant and surprising win for him.
It sure is.
Pause. Okay, I wanted you to hear what he just said there. Everybody pay close attention. So it would not apply to those 22 women that have already apparently been exempt. However, this ruling by the Supreme Court moving forward that a federal judge cannot block the president of the United States, this can apply to other rulings as well. So I want people to really get the big picture here. So this isn't just about birthright citizenship. And that's what I want everybody to understand, because let's remember the reason why Mahmoud Khalil was able to be freed from the detention center in Louisiana is because a judge, they came in and they said no. So if this is the case now, that a federal judge cannot come in and block these decisions, that can apply to anything. That can apply to free speech. You know, they're pushing back heavily on pro-Palestinian speech, whatever, anything. They're saying a federal judge cannot come in and block it. So I see a lot of people, when they're talking about this on social media, they're focusing just on the birthright citizenship issue, but they're not looking at the big picture. Basically, that means that the president in no way, shape, or form can be stopped from making said decisions. So people need to be careful what you ask for. I will say that. Let's go on to this clip here.
That's a good one.
He issued over 20 executive orders, including one that sought to deny birthright citizenship to children born in the U.S. to people here illegally. A federal judge in Washington state issued a nationwide injunction blocking the president's order.
In practice, this meant that if any one of the nearly 700 federal judges disagreed with the policy of a duly elected president of the United States, he or she could block that policy from going into effect, or at least delay it for many years, tie it up in the court system. This was a colossal abuse of power.
There are 94 judicial districts across the country.
And 35 out of the 40 opinions with nationwide injunctions came from 5 liberal districts in this country. These injunctions have blocked our policies, from tariffs to military readiness to immigration to foreign affairs, fraud, abuse, and many other issues. Americans are finally getting what they voted for. No longer will we have rogue judges striking down President Trump's policies across the entire nation.
So nationwide, that's the important part. That being said, this doesn't just apply to President Trump. This applies to any president going forward, unless the next president were to try to reverse this. But this applies to any president going forward. So keep that in mind, folks, because there are things that Republican presidents try to, push forward through executive order that you may be against. And there are things Democrat presidents try to push through via executive order that you may be against. So I want to be very clear about this. This is not just about Donald Trump. This applies to any president of the United States. Now, check this out. As you'll see, this has been done before with Democrat presidents as well. Federal judges coming in to block or delay. Bush had 6, Obama had 12, Trump had 64, Biden had 14, and then Trump again, so far 15.
Nationwide injunctions have become a problem for Republican and Democratic presidents, but Trump has received the most by far. A Harvard Law review from 2024 found that 93.6% of nationwide injunctions issued during Trump's first term and during the Biden administration were issued by judges appointed by a president of the opposing political party.
We can now promptly file to proceed with numerous policies that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis.
Some of those policies include dismantling the Department of Education and the U.S. Agency for International Development, freezing federal funding to sanctuary cities, suspending refugee resettlement in the U.S., and restricting taxpayer funding of gender-affirming care.
So just something to pay attention to. Now, I'm going to give you the other side of this as well, because again, on the show, I try to do my best at giving both perspectives, right? Who is this going to apply to? Would it apply to people that would fall under this new qualification for citizenship who are, public figures? What about people who are politicians? And the reason why I asked that question is we can name quite a few, right? We can name quite a few. One of them being Elon Musk. Elon Musk has made it very clear he didn't come here legally. Are they going to apply this to him? Probably not. But someone who qualified under birthright citizenship was Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek Ramaswamy was just running for president. He was supposed to be a part of Doge, but, they kicked him to the curb. There were some disagreements there between him and Elon, and things just got crazy, right? But I just want to remind you, Vivek Ramaswamy would also fit under this new category. He would fit under if this goes forward, he technically would not be able to stay here. But I don't think they're going to apply this to him. This is where I'm coming from, folks. Listen to this.
I believe in being consistent about my policies where...
So your father is not a citizen of the United States?
He's not.
Okay. And your mother, when did your mom take the citizenship test? Was it before or after you were born?
After I was born.
Well. People forget. After he was born. So that means that Vivek Ramaswamy also benefited from birthright citizenship. Remember, Vivek's parents were here studying as college students. And that brings up another question. What about those who are here as college students that are part of a PhD program? PhD programs in the US can take from 5 to 7 years. A lot of times, some of these PhD students are married. What happens if they have a baby, which these things have happened? That's why I'm bringing this up. They have a baby just like Vivek Ramaswamy's parents did. That means that their child would not automatically get citizenship in this country. So to my point, how would Vivek Ramaswamy be allowed to stay? And the only thing that I can think of is that they would say, well, we're not going back. It's not going to be retroactive. So if you're already here, then you're grandfathered in. But again, if you're already here and you're grandfathered in, and the border is closed, according to Donald Trump, who would this apply to? And then there's also the case of the future administration. The next administration, 2028, let's say if the Democrats won in 2028, they're probably going to try to roll this back. And then now you have this chaos. This is what we've been doing the past couple of years. Presidents implement something, the next president takes it away. Then they bring it back, they take it away, and they bring it back and take it away. And it creates a chaotic situation. So I want people to think about this from the bigger picture. Like, don't just look at this and say, oh, it's just birthright citizenship. Think about who this is really going to be applied to. Because I got a feeling, remember, he's running for governor. So think about that for a second.
After you were born. Okay.
After years of being in this, following the legal process of becoming a naturalized citizen, she followed it through the legal process. And
so you gained citizenship through birthright then?
Well, but you gained citizenship through birthright citizenship in that sense too, right? I mean, every American. So what I want to do is revive a vision of citizenship where every kid who enjoys.
I'm sorry, just to backtrack. So your father is not a citizen.
They came to this country legally. I believe in being consistent about my policies where...
So your father is not a citizen of the United States?
He's not.
Okay. And your mother...
Well, like I said, we'll have to see, like, if this goes through, we'll have to wait and see who this does apply to. That's what I'm saying. Because I don't think it's going to apply to some of those who, let's just say they're public figures, they're higher up there on the radar. Then that brings us to the point of the 14th Amendment, which we've discussed on the show before. I want you to hear what Donald Trump said about that. And then there's something here that I'm going to correct. Listen to this.
We can now promptly file to proceed with numerous policies that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis. And some of the cases we're talking about would be ending birthright citizenship, which now comes to the fore. That was meant for the babies of slaves. It wasn't meant for people trying to scam the system and come into the country on a vacation. This was, in fact, it was the same date, the exact same date, the end of the Civil War. It was meant for the babies of slaves, and it's so clean and so obvious. But this lets us go there and finally win that case because hundreds of thousands of people are pouring into our country under birthright citizenship, and it wasn't meant for that reason. Was meant for the babies of slaves.
He gets this somewhat right, and I'm going to tell you the vocabulary that needs to change there. This is the part that I think some liberals don't want to hear. And we're going to go through the timeline here. When we talk about the 14th Amendment, it was for free men, for freed men. And Donald Trump says the babies of slaves, but we'll get into the vocabulary here in just a second. But it was for freed men. And I think, I don't know, like maybe we need to go back through civics, maybe need to take a trip down history class again. I don't know. But for some reason, people are not saying this. People are just like, no, that's for everybody. no, the 14th Amendment wasn't for everybody. It specifically breaks that down. And I feel like all of a sudden people have just forgotten about what we learned in history class. We were taught about this in history, and I feel like people have forgotten about it. Let me let him finish, and I'll show you the vocabulary edit.
So thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with these numerous policies and those that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis, including birthright citizenship, ending sanctuary city funding, suspending refugee resettlement, freezing unnecessary funding, stopping federal taxpayers from paying for transgender surgeries, and numerous other priorities of the American people. We have so many of them. I have a whole list. I'm not going to bore you, and I'm going to have Pam get up and say a few words, but there's really, she could talk as long as she wants because this is a very important decision. This is a decision that covers a tremendous amount of territory. But I want to just thank again the Supreme Court for this ruling. It's a giant. It's a giant. And they.
Yeah, this is a big deal. And I assume more people are talking about this because this really could change everything when it comes to citizenship. Now, I do want to do a vocabulary correction here and shout out to Naheem, who's been on the show before. The 14th Amendment was not for the children of slaves. It was for freed persons. The Emancipation Proclamation was an executive order that freed all enslaved persons. Being that slavery itself was an unlawful and unconstitutional institution, that executive order held full power. The slaveholding states ignored this executive decree, and so Congress had to intervene. First, with the 13th Amendment, which barred this illegal practice. And I just want to add here, with the exception of prison labor. That's the exception for slavery in the United States is through prison labor under the 13th Amendment. Then the Civil Rights Act of 1866, and then the 14th Amendment in 1868. We must consistently correct this false narrative. So shout out to Naheem for this, for breaking this down, because I've said that before too, right? So I think, he comes out strong with this one. He even shows you, he brought up Chat GPT and how Chat GPT breaks this down as well. Even Chat GPT says the 14th Amendment was not written for children of slaves. It was written for freed persons, right? So he brings that up as well. And then he says here, quick correction, the Emancipation Proclamation was limited to the slave states. It was not a universal order. Nevertheless, it was largely ignored by those states. So again, we do have to make sure we have the proper vocabulary there. So shout out again to Naheem for doing that, because I've caught myself doing that too sometimes as well. But the other side of it, I want you to imagine something for a second so I can speak to this from personal experience. So because my family was military, I lived overseas and I lived in the States. I was born in the US. My sister was born overseas. My sister was born in Germany. My sister was not given birthright citizenship in Germany. That's not a thing. Now, she had an option. If she wanted to, she could apply for dual citizenship before she was 18 years old, but it's not automatically granted. And so the other point that people will bring up about this is they said, well, if an American is born in another country, like they don't automatically get birthright citizenship. So why do we have it like that here in the United States? So I want people to understand both sides of that. Now, how far back this is going, like, I don't know when they're going to start this. Like, if this happens, I don't know if they're going to start with, let's say it applies to people going forward, or if they're going to do retroactive. I don't know. But the problem I think that comes up when you say retroactive is people are going to ask how far back you're going to go, right? So I think what Donald Trump was saying in that speech is that one of the parents has to be a citizen. Some people brought this up online. They said, well, Donald Trump, you would have to leave too. I don't think that's the case. When I looked up the information, I think at least one of his parents was a citizen at that point in time. So, I mean, obviously, he's not going to push forward something that's going to implement him, right? So just think about that for a second. But get ready, because things are happening, and this could be a game changer for citizenship in this country. And also, when we talk about executive orders, this can also be a game changer in regards to what the president can actually do. So something you need to ask yourself is, do you want the president to have that much power? Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Justice said separation of powers, question mark. I don't even know these days. Helen says, yep, the ADOS movement talked about this, but people ain't listening. Yeah, this is true. I told you a lot of liberals get this wrong. Thank you, Flower Bro. Saikat Chakrabarty for Congress, fraud squad or not. Red flag for me is him being AOC's chief of staff and co-founder of Justice Democrats, thought Sabby. I have not looked into him too much. I know he's running, I think, against Nancy Pelosi. I would say that he needs to talk to Shahid Buttar, who went through this multiple times, running against Nancy Pelosi. She's pretty much, she has a hold on that city. The fact that she doesn't even have to debate says something. Thank you, sir. Bikes a lot. If an illegal alien can say the Pledge of Allegiance for 12 years going to school, and that doesn't make him a citizen, then the pledge is a farce. Interesting take there. Shout out to my comrade JB Font says, am I a Care Bear? You know you are. And happy birthday to JB. Everybody give JB a big happy birthday. Happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to ya. Woohoo! Sabby, the case of your sister, military or diplomat, is different. Due to government immunity, your rights is different from any other single American that may be born in other soil. Yeah, but if you look it up, if I'm wrong, I'll come back and admit. But if you look it up, I looked this up. It says if you are an American, if an American is born, like in Germany, for example, you're not automatically given citizenship. You have to apply for it. So we got to start asking these questions. But happy birthday to JB. Whoop, 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 whoop. All right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, smash the like if you haven't had a chance to do so, fam. Thank you so much. Again, the theme is get ready. Get ready. All right. So interesting things are happening. Joy Reid, you guys know that she was fired from Msnbc. We covered that story when that news broke. Joy Reid is now showing a different side of herself. In fact, she went onto the Breakfast Club recently and she started to lay out what happened behind the scenes leading up to her dismissal from the network. She was also on CNN as part of a panel discussion. And it's like, this is a completely different person. This is not the Joy Reid that we saw on MSNBC. Is now that she seems to be, independent, now it's almost as if you get to see who she really is. What's that all about? Let's get into this chat she had here with Charlamagne the God and the Breakfast Club fam. What went on behind the scenes?
Interesting. And, Stephen A. Smith tried to come for me and say, oh, ratings. It's like, yeah, no, that wasn't it. Everybody after the 2024 election, all of cable news went in the toilet. Like everybody's ratings dropped. And we had actually just had a ratings meeting like 2 weeks before I was fired where they were like, you guys are actually losing. You guys lost less than, your competitors and you're actually doing fine. So ratings were fine. We were doing fine. And, the ratings have not gotten better since I left. They've actually gotten, so it's not like it wasn't
I haven't
numbers.
watched it all.
Yeah. So it's not numbers. It wasn't ratings. And when I got the call, we at first thought it was a rumor. We had seen that there was this like Puck story that Friday where, and we didn't know what to do with it. We had already done our show. We had wrapped. I was having my cocktail. My executive producer called me and said, look, all of our producers are freaking out over this Puck story. So you should see it. And it was like a rumor. We were like, nah, we hadn't heard anything. Nobody had called me. Nobody had said, you did something wrong. You're in trouble. You're on probation. I had gotten nothing.
Unfortunately, a lot of times that's how it works, though. Unfortunately, in fact, at my previous employer, when I was at Boston University, people that I know that were fired that year, because, they were running amok. Like the university was like tripping. After the pandemic started, the university was tripping. They were getting rid of people left and right. And then later on, they were trying to find a way to keep people from leaving. It was really weird, right? Again, all about money. But they were firing people without warning. Without warning. And no, like, reason given or anything. So you're not always given a reason. You're not always given a warning.
And I get a text message then early the next morning saying, "Can you talk at noon?" And I was fired immediately. There was no warning. So and I asked, well, what's the, nothing. They were just like, "Oh, we just want to make some changes." They never said why. So I've had to live in the rumor mill with everybody else.
So you still don't really know
No.
Do you feel like, because you were brought in at the height of 2020 with the election, when the firing happened, was there any feeling of you were used as a voice just during that time and then they wanted to step away?
No, I think, just myself, I think about the things that were making management uncomfortable that I can tell you were, stated to me. And the two things that I think made, and I don't think it's just the management there. I think that in the cable news world and the news world in general, these two topics make management uncomfortable in the media in general. One of them is Trump, because Trump is suing everybody. I mean, he's literally threatening people to the point where 60 Minutes is shook, where ABC News is shook. He's verbally threatened Comcast by name, named Brian Roberts by name. And all of these are businesses that want to do business that need the FCC's approval.
You know who else is suing? Not just Donald Trump. You know who else is suing media networks now? Governor Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom is suing Fox News. I saw that report earlier this morning for defamation. I think we're going to see more of this, by the way, the defamation-like suits coming from people. It's crazy. It's bizarre. But that's one of the reasons that Joy is saying that, in other words, these networks, I guess, felt threatened by Trump's lawsuit. So the last thing they wanted to do is, I guess, piss off Donald Trump even more. So this is Joy Reid admitting to us that the news is not really giving you the real news. They're giving you what they think is going to be somewhat palatable so that Donald Trump won't try to sue them. Is everybody catching this? Again, we got to look at the big picture here, folks. This is Joy Reid letting you know what we've been saying for a long time, that corporate media is controlled. Right? Let's go on.
They actually have to have the federal government's approval to do mergers, acquisitions. He can't hurt them.
The broadcast, you can get your license taken away.
He can pull your license. They can't do it to cable because FCC doesn't regulate cable. But that you have broadcast partners, and you see the fact that NBC broadcast was physically separated from MSNBC. That feels protective, right? We got to protect our broadcast assets, which the FCC can. So it's like everyone is trying to navigate this really deranged man who is so emotional. And he behaves so emotionally that if he's mad at you in one moment, he may stop your mergers just because he feels like it, like he bombed Iran. He's just like, I'm pissed off. And so I think they're activating out of a sense of we don't want to poke the bear too much. And, and I'm not the only person that was doing it. There are lots of people at MSNBC. That was kind of our brand. We were the resistance, right? And we're sincere about it. We weren't making it up. All of us in Prime, we were serious about what we.
But you weren't really resistance, because here's the thing. Well, I'll say this. Maybe they were resisting Donald Trump, but they weren't resisting status quo. They weren't resisting the establishment. They were part of the establishment. They supported the establishment, and they went against, I would say, working class people multiple times. All of these policies that would help people who are struggling in this country, and also people who are just even trying to get to the middle class, which we don't really have in this country anymore. All of those policies that would greatly benefit that, they smeared those policies. So MSNBC, like when she says they were the resistance, what were you really resisting other than Donald Trump as president? Because you weren't resisting the establishment. You weren't resisting the status quo. You were actually keeping those things in place. And I'll give an example, which I said on the show before. Don't forget, there are many in independent media that have been around longer than me. And Joy Reid was one of the mouthpieces that smeared those people. The black ones. That's right. Joy Reid said, don't listen to those people. And now she finds herself over here on YouTube with the rest of us. Those same people that she said not to listen to. Then now she becomes one of those people. Everybody see where I'm going with this? So see, this is I kind of called it karma when it happened before, but the reality is you got to be careful because sometimes it's easy to point fingers when you're in that position. Like these people make a lot of money. Like these anchors on MSNBC, CNN, they make a lot of money, more than I'll ever make in my lifetime and more than you'll probably ever make in your lifetime. And they get paid to spread propaganda. Joy Reid was very much a part of that. Now, at any time, she could have left. At any time, she could have walked away if she wanted to. So we have to keep this in mind. Joy Reid was fired. If Joy Reid wasn't fired, is she having this conversation with the Breakfast Club right now? No, because she probably would have still been there. That's the point I'm trying to get across to you folks. She was totally fine with it when it suited her interest. Now, I have a lot more respect for those that got up and walked away. I have a lot of respect, and some commentators did. I have a lot of respect for the commentators that said, no, I'm not doing this anymore, and got up and left and walked away and decided to go independent. But it's different when you got fired, and that's why you're independent versus you walked away because they wanted you to continue to tell lies and you're independent. Does everybody see the difference there? All right.
You were saying. So I think that was one piece. I think the other piece is Gaza. And you just can't get away from the fact that talking about Gaza in a way that humanizes Palestinians is not the usual way that cable news operates or that any news in this country operates. For whatever reason, that topic makes people uncomfortable.
And who owns those cable media networks? Who owns those cable media networks? You're right, Brian. 100%. Mehdi didn't even get fired, but still walked away. To his credit, Jim Acosta did the same thing. That's what I'm talking about. It's different for those who chose to walk away. But she was totally fine continuing to spread as long as she was getting all those perks with MSNBC. Like I said, these people are treated very well. Very well. I don't know about you. I don't know what it's like to have a car come pick me up, take me to work. I don't know what it's like to have somebody, sit me down and do my makeup and my hair. I don't know what that's like. All of this is homemade. All this is homemade. I do my own makeup, boo. So I don't, these people were enjoying a great life and the perks that came with it. So just keep that in mind. Again, who owns the networks? Why is it that Gaza makes corporate media so uncomfortable? Who owns it? Who owns Fox News? Who owns CNN? Think about it. Think about it. Okay? All righty.
And it doesn't make regular folks uncomfortable because I think the majority of Americans agree that what's happening there is not just a genocide, but is unconscionable for us to participate in. I think most Americans believe that, agree with that. But there was a discomfort with that topic that I saw in the policing of my social media, in requests to not like certain things on social media. There was a sense that topic, it makes people uncomfortable.
Saying you want to see innocent men, women, and children not be killed shouldn't make anybody uncomfortable.
It shouldn't. It didn't with Rwanda. When the Hutu and the Tutsi were slaughtering each other, we very easily in the media said that was a genocide, right?
But that's not the best example. Because again, with Rwanda, they weren't being genocided by Israel. So you know what the problem is. It's because it's Israel that is doing it. That's why. So making that connection is important. And Charlemagne just sitting there like, Lord help him. Charlemagne is just sitting there just kind of like, I don't know. I don't understand. Yeah, all you guys can play dumb if you want to. But the reality is, you know what the problem was. You know it's because it's Israel. That's why. And actually, if we want to go back to Rwanda, in the beginning, that is not what Bill Clinton said. In the beginning, Bill Clinton denied that there was a genocide in Rwanda. He had to come back and apologize and say that there was. So Joy still being kind of, because look, Joy still want access now. Don't get it twisted. She has her own show on YouTube now, but she still want access. So Joy is, even in this interview, she's being somewhat careful about the way she is saying things, right? She's not saying what I just told you because she still wants to have that access to people in corporate media. Just the same thing, just like with Don Lemon, same thing, right? So they all trying to like tiptoe around the issue here, and we know what the issue is.
I mean, if you look at what Russia is doing to Ukraine, when they bomb a school or a hospital or a music school, that is reported as barbaric. It's reported as genocidal. When they're stealing Ukrainian children and kidnapping them to Russia, there's moral clarity from the media, and there's no hesitation to say that what Russia is doing is evil.
That was not considered genocidal, what she was just talking about there, though. That's the thing. Some people will see this and they're going to say that I'm biased because it's Russia. No, it's just not. Like, that was not considered the same thing.
But when it comes to what's happening to the people in Gaza, number one, it isn't talked about that much on U.S. media. If you go overseas, it's on a lot more. And then number two, the way it's spoken about is, I don't know, maybe it's like when a friend is doing something wrong, you don't want to talk about them. You don't want to say anything negative. But there is a hesitation. I definitely think that's a thing in American media.
No, it's not because it's a friend. It's because it's Israel. And then you have to make the connection with who owns those networks. That's what this is really all about. I told you guys before. A lot of us don't really own anything. So like sometimes when I say like follow the money, you know, we got to follow that money all the way up to the tippity top. It's like you can say that Disney owns ESPN. Okay. But who owns Disney? And who are the shareholders for Disney? Right? Because you have BlackRock, you have Vanguard Group that are shareholders for CNN. I mean, you really do have to follow that money and then you put the pieces all together. And that's why some things are the way that they are. It's sad, but it's true.
Has anybody from the show reached out to you since the layoff?
I still talk to all of my friends that are over there. You know what I mean? I mean, the beautiful thing about MSNBC, I think there's an assumption in that the media world is super competitive and that people are catty and competitive. The people that I worked with at MSNBC, we genuinely are friends. Like, they are incredible people, brilliant people. I mean, Rachel Maddow is like an actual genius. Like, that is real. You know, Nicole Wallace, lovely person. You know, I still talk to Stephanie Rule. That's my girl.
Yeah, that's your girl and those your friends, but they're still there and you're not. Because they're still spreading the same propaganda that you were just preaching against. So let's put all that together. Okay? Because they decided to continue propaganda. They decided not to stand up for what was happening in Gaza. I mean, I don't know, you guys. I don't know.
Cuckoo crazy. She's a lot of fun. Y'all should have her on here. She is a hoot. You know, Alex Wagner, that's my girl. You know what I mean? Like, these are my people. I love Chris Hayes. Like, these are my people. So I still, you know, keep in touch. And a lot of the producers from my show, I'm still in touch with them because we weren't like faking being friends. Like, we were actually friends. Yeah. So I still have deep respect for the people who are on air over there. And the people I worked with, I think they were all genuine and sincere human beings. And I loved my crew. Yeah.
They were genuine and sincere human beings, but they still there because they're still preaching the propaganda. That's not being genuine. They still have their jobs at MSNBC because they were willing to continue to lie and not question what Israel was doing. That's it. I mean, I don't know how much to say it. How else I can say this, you guys? Right? So again, I have a lot of respect for those that walked away on their own, right? Even if I think they're corny, I have a lot of respect for that. But again, if Joy Reid did not get fired, does this conversation with the Breakfast Club happen? I want to remind everybody, Joy Reid has been known to blacklist people. Brianna Joy Gray wrote an article about this in Current Affairs not too long ago. She was booked as a guest on Joy Reid's show. And the staffer who booked her was removed because they didn't want Bree to come on there. She was blacklisted. There's a number of people in independent media that have been blacklisted. That's why you don't see them on even some of these panel discussions, like on CNN and stuff like that, right? They don't want too much of that getting out there, right? So put that all together. But then when it happened to you, so see, this is why, you know, and I just said this before, it's karma, because you put your foot down, you shut the door behind you. You pulled up the ladder behind you, and you prevented Black independent voices from coming on to MSNBC, in particular, your show. And then that same network fired you. And now you find yourself right over here on YouTube with the rest of us. Now you over here with us, slumming it with us. So you never know where your path, your journey is going to take you. And that's why, like, when you at the top, that's why you can't look down on the little people. Because as soon as you get something, it can also be taken away from you, especially if you don't own it. She didn't own the network. You can find yourself right there with the people that you said don't listen to, the people that you said didn't know what they were talking about. You find yourself right in that hole. So I sincerely hope that Joy will be humbled from this experience. But I think she owes independent Black media an apology for the things that she did. Now, check this out. Now she over on CNN, right? On a panel on CNN. Now, all of a sudden, again, I don't know who this person is. This is not the Joy Reid we saw on MSNBC. Now, all of a sudden, she wants to tell the truth. Listen to this.
Understand that the United States plays an important role in the world. I am thrilled that the United States is trying to police the proliferation of nuclear weapons. Imagine what the world would look like if it was otherwise. And I think that to throw away our moral voice
would still be the only country that has ever bombed another country with nuclear weapons. And let me ask you one question. Why did the Iran hostage crisis take place?
So certainly,
I'm asking you
fundamentalist radicals took over the government who
hate
the West.
Why did they take over the government? Why?
Because they're religious jihadis who want to eliminate Western society.
They hate our way of life. They hate our way of life.
Or they overthrew the Shah of Iran, who we imposed on Iran because the Dulles brothers, one at the CIA and one at the State Department, decided that the oil beneath the soil of Iran belonged to BP and belonged to us. And when Mossadegh, who was the leader of Iran, the democratically elected leader of Iran, said that we would like to audit BP because we want to know if you are cheating us or paying the people of Iran based on the oil under their soil. And they said, you may not audit us. And then we overthrew him and he wound up dying in prison because we decided that we, in our arrogance as a country, got to own their oil. And wait a minute.
So who was this? Where was this Joy when she was on MSNBC? You see what I'm saying? Like, where was this? Where was it?
No, one moment. And so the hatred of the United States had to do with the hatred of the Shah, who brutally repressed the people of Iran for 26 years until he was overthrown within Iran because he was not their natural king. They didn't want a king any more than we wanted a king. The bottom line is the arrogance of the United States' foreign policy. We act as if people act in a vacuum, and that nothing we do has ever led to the hatred of us in other countries. And I'm not saying that hostages should be taken, but you just said because they hate our freedoms. That's BS.
No, they hate the Western world. I want to answer
let me just understand.
So you see the difference, right? You see the difference now that she's no longer with MSNBC. So this is what I was trying to tell you guys. Joy knows. Joy, she's Congolese. Joy knows what this foreign policy stuff. Joy is well aware about what's really going on. So keep that in mind. And in all the years that I saw her on MSNBC, and if you saw it, send it to me, let me know. All the years I saw on MSNBC, how often did you hear her fight for the Congolese people? And what's going on in the Congo and how they have children working in the mines so that we can have rechargeable batteries. I don't remember seeing her talk about those things. You see what I'm saying? But she over here with us on YouTube. See, she got a YouTube channel called The Joy Reid Show. By the way, all of her videos are copyright. It's written in the detailed description, so you can't play her videos on your show. Just thought I'd let you guys know that. And she has 188,000 subscribers. And let me tell you something. Look, For those who are popular, those who have name recognition, right? Those who came from corporate media, when they come over to YouTube, they grow very quickly. It took me years to get to 188,000 subscribers because independent media, there's a layer of suppression on YouTube, but there's an added layer of suppression for independent media. You guys have heard us talk about that before, right? So see how she can just come over here this year and easily get to 188,000 subscribers, and it took the rest of us years to get that? It ain't easy over here. It ain't easy. And I gave people this warning. I gave people this warning about a year ago. Watch out for the number of corporate media people that are making their way over to YouTube to do quote unquote independent media. And then when they come over here, they realize this isn't as easy as they thought. Like what we do, this is not easy. And there are a lot of us, and this, not even just this channel, okay? There's a lot of people that do independent media that are smaller channels who I've had on the show. Don't have a producer. Don't have a setup. Again, I got this ring light, I think late last year. Go back and look at some of my old videos. You can see the difference. So it takes time. It takes time to build up, to get the camera, etc., all these types of things. But Joy, because she is who she is, just like with Dawn Lemon, they were already household names. So when they came over here, they grew very quickly. Whereas the rest of us, we started here on YouTube and we pretty much crawled our way. Like I crawled my way up, 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 up. It took time. So, never point your finger down at the little people like us, because you might find yourself over here with the rest of us one day too. And then you see just how different things are, because you got to do this yourself. But interesting that she's explaining more what happened behind the scenes with MSNBC. Interesting. Let's get to some of the comments here, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, CR. Says Sabby, we appreciate you, fam. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and bring it over. Thank you, Dre. Sabby, if the child is born to military overseas, no civilians, they're automatically granted citizenship. Yes, in the US, but not in Germany. Like you're not granted citizenship in Germany. Does that make sense? I probably should explain that better. Sorry about that. Kawan says, I've been laid off twice, not for cause, just business. Get over it. FFS. Yeah, a lot of times they don't tell you. And thank you, Dre. That makes Joy even worse. She was selling us nonsense for the sake of party and her paycheck. Uncle Joy with the blonde white man hair gotta go. Uncle Joy with the blonde. Tim says, yes, Melissa Harris Perry was the best MDNC had on their station. Yeah, they got rid of her too. Thank you, Instron. Sabs, you have it wrong. RE, what Trump/Vivek say. Parents have to be here legally, but not citizens. If parents have legal visas, children would be citizens. Okay, my bad. Miss Pamela, you do a good job on your makeup, Sabby. Thank you. Thanks, I appreciate that. Thank you, Courtney. And you do a very excellent job on your own makeup too. Thank you guys so much. Thanks. Thank you, One Box. Hey, Sabby love. She is still being supported by corporate. That's true. Thank you, John. They certainly didn't talk about the attempted ethnic cleansing of Russians by the Ukrainians. Love from Florida. No, they're not going to mention that part. Kay Fujoka says, Sabby slumming it with us. Yep. She over here slumming it with us, man. Thank you, IH. Speaking about Rwandan, Israel armed that genocide. I will link one article for anyone who wants to read. Ooh, interesting. Brian says, Joy watched Candace, the Young Turk, Sabby, and others, and is now repeating everything she heard on other progressive media. Thank you, Flower Bro. Now that Mandani has shown leftist policies are winning policies in blue states, can you cover Ramsey Robinson and Dr. Ware's gubernatorial campaigns in California? We already covered, well, Butch was on here. We covered Butch gubernatorial campaign in California. I can bring him back on, but we did cover it. And I can look into Dr. Ramsey or Ramsey Robinson. And thank you, Portable Regulation Studio. I just discovered you a couple of weeks ago. Now I watch every day. You're a natural at this. Thank you for keeping it real. Well, thank you so much. That's really sweet. That's really sweet. All right. Smash the like. If you haven't had a chance to do so, thank you so much. All right. I told you I was going to give you the economic report, and I do want you to get ready for this one. Get ready. A lot of things have been happening in the news, particularly with foreign policy. You know, there was the war with Israel and Iran, and I feel like all of a sudden our attention was directed that way. And we may have kind of forgotten about economic issues and policies here right in the United States. Well, I've had a chance to look at the numbers, and I think you need to see this. Check this out. The U.S. economy shrank 0.5% in the first quarter, worse than earlier estimates had revealed. Yeah, we got to get back to the economics here, guys. We got to talk about what is happening to the economy. The U.S. economy at a 0.5% annual pace from January through March. As Trump trade wars disrupted business, the Commerce Department reported Thursday in an unexpected deterioration of earlier estimates. First quarter growth was weighed down by a surge of imports as U.S. companies and households rushed to buy foreign goods before Trump could impose tariffs on them. The Commerce Department previously estimated that the economy fell 0.2% in the first quarter. Economists had forecast no change in the department's third and final estimate. So I want to show you the chart here so you can see the U.S. economy shrinks. Again, the gross domestic product contracted for the first time in 3 years, shrinking at an annual rate of 0.5% in the first 2025 quarter. To revise Commerce Department estimates, look at the graph here, folks. This is where we are now. Now you can compare it to the other quarters here, 2.4%. This is 2024, 3.1, 3, 1.6, 3.2, 4.4. So you get the idea. That's not good for us. Let's go on a little bit more. The January-March drop in gross domestic product, the nation's output of goods and services, reversed a 2.4 increase in the last 3 months of 2024 and marked the first time in 3 years that the economy contracted. Imports expanded 37 to 9%, fastest since 2020. Again, 2020 was the pandemic, and pushed GDP down by nearly 4.7 percentage points. Consumers' spending also slowed sharply, expanding just 0.5%, down from a robust 4% in the fourth quarter of the last year. It is a significant downgrade from the Commerce Department's previous estimate. This is the thing that we cannot forget to discuss, and that's the economy. And I feel like the economy has been taking a backseat, at least in the news world, because we were, right at World War III's doorstep. So rightfully so, we were going to focus on that. But we can't forget about it. And I want to give everybody a heads up about this. All these changes that you're seeing happening right now with the culture wars, like some of the things that changing the name of ships and all this kind of stuff, that's a distraction. None of that matters when the economy is concerned. So Donald Trump is changing. He's making those changes for the culture war to fit one side of the base or people who really wanted that. But they're not making changes that are helping the economy. And this is what I've been trying to tell people. Again, where are working class people today compared to 2 years ago, 3 years ago? The economy is still an issue. Now, a number of people are going to say, well, he just got in office. I get all that. But I do not want you to take your eye off the economy. This should be one of the more pressing issues. Consumers have turned jittery since Trump started plastering big taxes on imports, anticipating that the tariffs will impact their finances directly. So does everybody see what is happening here. Federal government spending fell at 4.6% annual pace, the biggest drop since 2022. In another sign that Trump's policies are disrupting trade. Trade deficits reduce GDP, but that's just a matter of mathematics. GDP is supposed to count only what produced domestically, not stuff that comes in from abroad. So imports, which show up in the GDP report as consumer spending or business investment, have been subtracted out to keep them from artificially inflating domestic production. So again, we are not going to take our eye off of the economy. And a lot of all this other stuff that you guys are seeing in the news, again, I feel like it's a distraction. So when I say get ready, get ready. Connected to this story is important as well. We're also seeing something when it comes to employment. Check this out. Unemployment among young college graduates outpaces overall U.S. joblessness rate. Now, again, we are no longer in the pandemic. It is 2025. And we are seeing, once again, the unemployment rate is increasing. This is with college graduates. So let's go into this. This is all connected, folks. I want to make it a little bit bigger for people to follow along. Okay. While completing a master's degree in data analysis, Pawasha Zahid moved from Dallas to a town near Silicon Valley. The location made it easy to visit the campus of tech stalwarts, such as Google, Apple, and NVIDIA. Zahid, who's 25, completed her studies in December, but so far she hasn't found a job in the industry that surrounds her. Ding, 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 ding. Now we're starting to see even people that graduated from college going into the tech sector or trying to go into the tech sector. They're not finding those tech jobs. That used to be guaranteed gainful employment. Now that is no longer the case. Some of us warned people years ago that this tech field was becoming oversaturated. And now you see what's happening here, but it's not just the tech industry. This is a problem for people graduating from college all across the United States. Zahid went on to say, it stings a little bit. I never imagined it would be this difficult just to get a foot in the door. By the way, it is June. They graduated in December. Young people graduating from college this spring and summer are facing one of the toughest job markets in more than a decade. The unemployment rate for degree holders ages 22 to 27 has reached its highest level in a dozen years, excluding the pandemic. Joblessness among that group is now higher than the overall unemployment rate, and the gap is larger than it has been in more than 3 decades. We have a problem. I try to warn people that the college kids weren't getting these jobs. And I first saw it when I was still working in higher education. I no longer work in higher education anymore, but I started seeing it towards towards the tail ends of the pandemic, right? And we had the pandemic, so I pointed to that as the reason. But now we're seeing it again. Okay, so we gotta call this out. The rise in unemployment has worried many economists as well as officials at the Federal Reserve because it could be an early sign of trouble for the economy. It suggests businesses are holding off on hiring new workers because of rampant uncertainty stemming from the Trump administration tariff increase, which could slow growth. That could be part of it. But I also want to bring up this part as well. Young people are bearing the brunt of a lot of economic uncertainty. This is from an economist from Upjohn Institute. The people that you often are most hesitant in hiring when economic conditions are uncertain are entry-level positions. Let's pause there for a second, because we need to talk about these so-called entry-level positions, because they're not even entry-level anymore. It used to be that an entry-level position meant that you could have 0 to 1 years of experience. Nowadays, you look at a job that's entry level position, they want you to have 3 to 5 years experience. Is that really entry level? They make it more difficult for you to get those jobs. It's also a way to weed people out, to cut back on the number of applications. So it's a lot happening. And I'm really concerned about the number of people graduating from college that had student loans that are not finding jobs. Because the reality is you only got they give you 6-month grace period to find a job before you have to start paying those loans back. This isn't the 2008 housing crisis. This isn't 2020 pandemic days. This is 2025. It goes on to say here, the growth of artificial intelligence may be playing an additional role by eating away at positions for beginners in white-collar professions such as information technology, finance, and law. Law was oversaturated when I was in undergrad. So there's that. I considered going to law school, but I saw even then it was oversaturated. So you know where it is now. IT, same thing. Used to be a number of people say, oh, I'm going to study information technology. I'll become an IT specialist. They don't really need to hire you like that anymore because of AI. Same thing with finance. This is the warning that Andrew Yang was trying to alert people about when he was running for president. Andrew Yang warned people that a lot of these jobs are going to be taken by AI, and we're seeing it play out. So now you essentially have groups of students that have college degrees that they can't even really use. Same thing happened with many of us that graduated when I was an undergrad. And you look at the 2008 housing crisis, how a lot of people got these degrees and they weren't able to get jobs in those fields. The point is, a college degree doesn't guarantee that you're going to have the American dream anymore. Not these days. It goes on to say here, higher unemployment for younger graduates has also renewed concerns about the value of a college degree. Here we go. More workers than ever have a 4-year degree, which makes it less of a distinguishing factor in job applications. Murat Toski, an economist at JP Morgan, calculates that 45% of workers have a 4-year degree. That is up from 26% in 1992. So do you guys see what's happening here? Now let's connect all this together. The economy fell worse than it was predicted to by that 0.5%. And then also, as you can see here, the college graduates are having difficulty finding a job. It's all connected. Now I'm going to say this, and, pass this on to your kids. Ultimately, parents, I know you can't always stop what your kids do, but you can share this information with them. I'm going to keep it real and 100 with you. Right now, nowadays, I would not recommend attending college if you have to take out student loans, if you are not going to be guaranteed to make at least $150,000 a year. Just keeping it real with you. I would not recommend it. Because here's the thing. For people who don't have the student loans, that's a different situation. They don't have that debt that they have to pay back. So if it takes them longer to find a job, a lot of times some of them can go work at their parents' business, or they can stay with their parents while they sort out their life and figure out what they want to do. But for those who do have to take out student loans, be very careful about what you choose to major in. Because with AI and everything that's happening right now, it's changing. You used to be guaranteed a job if you majored in like software engineering, right? Computer programmer, information technology. They aren't really hiring folks like that like they used to anymore. And you're noticing more people are moving out of that Silicon Valley area as well. Because again, they laying people off of the tech jobs. They're laying people off in healthcare. They're laying people off in education. So I heavily on this show promote trade schools. I know welders are in high need, especially if you're female, by the way. If you're a female welder, that is a high needed request. I don't know if everybody knows that. But the reality is, we knew that AI was going to have an impact in the job market. We knew it was inevitable at some point. But you combine this with the economy not performing well. And I want you to think about all these other distractions that have been happening around us. You see, it's interesting because the media will put something in our face and we'll look there and forget about what's over here. So I just want to remind everybody the economy is not doing well. And while everybody's focused on changing names of ships or changing holidays and all this jazz, it is pulling your attention away from a failing economy, which was only inevitable at some point because the United States is in serious decline. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gentlemen. I think I scrolled up too far. I did scroll up too far. I'm so sorry. Oh, here we go. I'm sorry, guys. I'm by myself. Eric's on vacay. So I should have said that. That's why you guys are probably like, what is going on? I'm just making sure I didn't stop. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kevin. GDP adjusted for purchasing power. How much your dollar buys is a more accurate ruler than nominal GDP. Thank you, Sajad. Mandami and Massey taught me how both ideologies can go hand in hand. Massey, libertarian, anti-war, civil liberty policies, while Mandami and Governor Waltz are ballots, let us focus on states and LOC programs. That's an interesting point. Let's see if Thomas Massey keeps his seat. There's some things going on there. Skylar says, sigh, time for me to get a pedicure and to lotion up these toes. I guess got to start up this Feet Only Fans account. Hey, you do what you got to do, Skylar. Thank you, One Box. Sabbyology. What people need to do now is to get into vocational training. Think independent money and coup to challenge economy. Feel me? Yeah. I agree. I agree. Thank you, Jong. Everyone, please read Lynn Alden's book, Broken Money, and then get on the Bitcoin lifeboat. Interesting. Holy smokes. Thank you so much for the donation, Blueser. I really appreciate that. That is a generous. Holy crap. Damn, Blueser, what do you do for a living? And thank you, Sajad. Most tech roles don't require a degree, just certifications that are way more affordable. That's a good point as well. I don't know if people getting them jobs, though. Don't know if people getting them jobs. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have one more story for you. A crazy one at that. Crazy, crazy, crazy. So I don't know if everyone is familiar with a fitness influencer named Liver King. He has a large following on Instagram. Very buff dude. And he was one of those fitness influencers where he was eating like raw meat, and I guess he created these supplements that he was selling to people. And anyway, his message was, this is how he got the physique that he got, by eating that way, eating raw meat, and, working out to the extent that he works out. Now, even back at that point, people were saying, more fitness influencers were saying, there's no way this guy is not on steroids. Like, they were calling it out, right? Like, the dude is jacked. And it's one of those things like you don't get that way naturally, right? But he denied it multiple times. And then eventually there was a leak that showed that, yes, he was on steroids and he was purchasing steroids. Now, I bring this up because one of the podcasters who called this out early on was Joe Rogan. About 2 years ago, Joe Rogan was talking about Liver King with another guest. And Joe Rogan said, that's not natural. There's no way that guy is that way without using enhancements, right? That was a couple years ago. I don't know that Joe Rogan said anything about him recently. And this is important because apparently Liver King was arrested because he threatened Joe Rogan. Like, arrived in Austin, Texas and everything. Was apparently threatening Joe Rogan. And this is wild. I can't make this up. Get to it. Liver King influencer arrested in Texas after threatening Joe Rogan. His name is Brian Johnson, known online as the Liver King, posted a series of threatening videos on Instagram in the days before his arrest in Austin, Texas. This is crazy, guys. It's like you never know what people are doing. So it goes on to say, Austin police said in a statement that they arrested Brian Johnson after they learned that he was traveling to Austin, Texas, and that's where Joe Rogan lives, and threatening Joe Rogan in a series of videos he posted on Instagram. I'll get into one of the videos here, but one of them he said, Joe Rogan, I'm calling you out. My name is Liver King, man to man. I'm picking a fight with you. I have no training in jiu-jitsu. You're a black belt. You should dismantle me. But I'm picking a fight with you. Your rules, I'll come to you whenever you're ready. In another video he posted that day, he similarly challenged Rogan to fight man to man. You never come across something like this. Willing to die, hoping that you'll choke me out because that's a dream come true. Police said that they contacted Rogan on Tuesday and that he told them he had never previously interacted with Johnson and considered the post to be threatening. Later that day, Johnson was apprehended at Four Seasons Hotel and charged with a terroristic threat, a Class B misdemeanor. So this is Liver King here over to the right. And obviously, I think everybody knows who Joe Rogan is, so we need to point him out. But I'm going to say this. I'm going to show you one of the videos. There is something wrong with Liver King, dude. This is someone who needs some serious help. And I think you'll see that when we bring up one of the videos here. So let's share this one. It says, Liver King was arrested in Austin, Texas yesterday after threatening to fight Joe Rogan. Like, guys, tell me this guy don't need help. Watch this.
Anything and everything. Because Joe Rogan, we don't have to make videos to pretend anymore. All of this is happening. We're coming to you. I've challenged you man to man to a fight. Honorable. And we don't have to pretend or make any videos. The world is watching. They'll make the videos for us. And you don't have to hold a camera. You can hold the hand of somebody that you love, because what happens next to you, you're going to need to remember that feeling. You're going to need something more than what you did to give you something to fight for, because I have my family to fight for. And I'll die for them, you know that. And you're a black belt, but you've never come across something like this. Willing to die, hoping that you'll choke me out. I pray to God, because that's a dream come true. It feels good. And then the limbs, I'm fighting for my family. So limb.
Let me pause here for a second. Guys, dude looks super old. Like, and he's not that old, right? Like, so I saw, there's Liver King documentary on Netflix right now. It's one of the Untold documentaries. You guys know that Untold series on Netflix. So there's one about Liver King on Netflix right now. He looks significantly older than he should. Dude is not doing well. Like, I'm not trying to be mean, but you can look at his face and you can tell he didn't look like this. For those of you who saw the documentary, he doesn't look like that in the docuseries. Something is off here. He does not look well at all. And he looks significantly old. Oof.
Go ahead. But then you have to contend with something else. And I weigh 177 pounds. An actual savage. And so at first you're like, fuck that guy. And, right? When you all of a sudden he did get your attention, which I already did before this, you're saying, I'm going to choke that motherfucker, that piece of fucking shit. I'm going to choke him out. That's what warriors do. You and Andrew Tate are good warriors. But you're actually better than that real tension we have. Comedy comedy that you do is good and true. We have real tension. But what I see in you is comedy is good and true. Touch points. How people laugh. If we don't make fun of them at their expense, they laugh. You should all make fun of me. You should all make fun of me at my expense. Trust me, that it still works. And
I don't know. Dude does not look good. Red Six said beard looks musty. Yeah, it's something, I don't know. Something is off here. Again, like, and I'm familiar with Liver King, but he does not look like he's been doing well. And who knows? It could have been the feedback after he did admit that he was taking steroids, right? Maybe it was that, like the blowback that he received from the public after that. I don't know. All I know is that dude does not look well. He looked like he aged overnight.
and then you should get paid for it. And let's go. Let's go. Because we're leaving. We're going to Austin. What was my very last point?
That we're going to kick Joe Rogan's ass?
The real G said it. It's my speech. Justin Fitz.
Yeah, so that's where he said, that was the video where he said they were on their way to Austin and they were going to kick Joe Rogan's ass. And like I said, it's weird because those comments from Joe Rogan, those were made like 2 years ago. That's why I didn't understand what was happening here. But here's him being arrested.
Yeah. Ma'am, these items are for you.
I wouldn't take that with me.
Yeah, and he has responded since he has been released. I do want you guys to hear what he says here. He's not backing down with Joe Rogan. Like he's really mad at Joe Rogan.
That gives them a lot of vulnerabilities because they knew everything they were doing wasn't right. We're getting this family man, 0 record, not even a fucking parking ticket, never been arrested, except in Poland, that was real. But never actually, here, 0 record, zero record. And then my wife is here, my boys are here, my actual sons are with me, everyone's with me, and they kind of knew. And since everyone knew what they were doing was incongruent with the truth, they did a lot of things wrong, which then left our city extremely vulnerable from a legality standpoint. And I'm going to say this right now, I would never sue my city or my state, ever. But Joe Rogan put them at risk by calling in a favor. They did many things wrong. They never even said you're arrested. They just arrested. They just detained me. And it's okay with the rights. But when they read your rights right before the end, they say, you have the right to terminate this interview at any time. All the others are self-explanatory. And so I said, do you have any questions? And I said, I do. I didn't really come here. I'm not looking for an interview. I don't need information about you. I'd like to go back to my family. I got something else I'd like to do. Seems like you want an interview. If you have utility to share with me, you should do it right now. But the last one was, I have the right to terminate this interview at any time. What happens if I do that? What happens if I do that? He says, then you go straight to jail. And I said, okay, then this interview is terminated. You should put me straight in jail. Right. And so that ends up happening. And that's the gift that I got, is like novelty and new experience. I was in an actual real prison, in Poland, a USSR type underground, everything concrete, metal, and real men, Polish. The hell's in. And then I went to like this one, yeah, this is in.
Yeah, I don't think this guy is well. Like I really don't. Very weird. Very weird. But the police contacted Joe Rogan. I guess somebody sent these videos to the police, contacted Joe Rogan and said, hey, this guy said he's on his way to Austin, Texas to try to rough you up or whatever, that type of thing. And according to this, it says Liver King says he will never stop after arrest over alleged threat against Joe Rogan. Like, this is, I don't get this at all. I don't know if he's just trying to get attention or what. But let me tell you guys something. people have been known to be crazy out there. Let me tell you, I just saw a story, and I didn't know if I wanted to cover it or not because I wasn't familiar with the show. But there was a YouTuber that unalived herself because, according to her husband, she couldn't take what people were saying to her in the comments. Or something like that. I guess it really got to her. This YouTuber, they had over like 1 or maybe 2 million subscribers. It was a big channel. I had never heard of it. But she did animal like rescue type services. And I was like, yo, like it's real out here in these YouTube streets. It's real out here, just in social media and period. But like you got to be careful because you never know. Like some people a little crazy. Some people are a little crazy. Claire said that happens a lot. Yeah, you never know. You gotta be careful, like who you interact with and stuff like that. Cause I don't know, man. People can kind of get there. But yeah, apparently he doesn't want to let this go. He doesn't want to give this up. So I don't know. They said that he was wearing an ankle monitor and had a mental health evaluation within 1 week of arrest. So let me say something to you guys about the social media fame. This dude had millions of followers. I think some unfollowed him, but I think a lot of them still do. And he became pretty popular pretty quickly. And as soon as people build you up, they'll take you down, you know, or they'll laugh at your demise. And then it almost kind of seems like then you or him as that creator is trying to find another way to have relevancy because you lied and said you weren't using steroids and you were using them, which is how you got that physique, which is important for people to know. And people turned on you after that. So now it just kind of seemed like you end up doing stuff just for attention, just because. To still have that. That's kind of what it feels like. Very scary though. Very scary. Claire said, fame is a dangerous game. It's not what people think. That's right. Savvy says, dude has some unresolved emotional issues, obviously. Yeah. I mean, you never know, you guys. But I just got to tell you, it's crazy out here in these YouTube streets. Angelique knows who I'm talking about. I cried when I saw her husband's video. I loved her content. Yeah, so you know who I'm referring to. Yeah. Oof. Yes, FM. And he became rich off those lies. Yes, he did. He sure did. He made a lot of money. A lot of money. Crazy times, folks. Crazy times. Let's go to the comments and then we will skadoodle, okay? Thank you, Roger. If you're Gen X, we're stuck in that middle. Thank you, Michael. H-1B visas are to blame. Thank you, Black Mariner. Absolutely love your content. You inspire me to create content in an uncompromised way. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Tabitha says, Liver King's got issues. Thank you, Skylar. If we have to get degrees and careers solely for money because there's no jobs, depression, drug abuse, etc., will skyrocket. Gonna be more alleged Luigi's. It's a good point there, Skylar. Brent said heavy steroid use makes you irrational. Triple Crown said he's 47 and looks 20 years older. Yeah, it just, I don't know, man. Thank you, none of your business. Look at his pupils. He is on something. Laura says the steroids will ruin you. And Dr. Harden says it's not hard if you check BLS. Thank you so much, you guys. And we just want to give a shout out to Sabby patrons, which I did not do yet. So I don't want to forget about you guys. Don't forget about the patrons. The patrons. Yeah. Thank you to everybody who is a Sabby patron. Really do appreciate you, fam. If you're interested in being a patron, I have 5 categories here. We have ultimate Sabinators, but they not no haters. Don't forget about the Sabsters. We also have Sabbies, which we love as well. And of course, there are members. Thank you guys so much for your support. You have seen their names scroll across the bottom of your screen all night. And I want to give a shout out to, I think we have new Sabby patrons, so we want to shout them out. We call them newbies. Let's give it up for Sharon Sayers, Sharon Janice, double Sharon, Jude, and Dwayne Vogel. Thank you. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you, fam. I will be live again Tuesday evening. I am hosting a panel and we have news segments. We will have a panel about Zoron Mandami and what people think the path should be going forward. So that should be a pretty interesting discussion. So tune in for that. And thank you so much, Ziambu, for the super sticker. Appreciate you, fam. Remember what we say. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.